Jake Martinez wiped sweat from his forehead as he walked through the crowded halls of Nexus Station. The massive space station hummed with activity from dozens of different alien species. Tall, green-skinned Zenterans pushed past small, furry Philoxians. Purple-scaled Draconians barked orders at anyone who came too close. The air smelled like metal and strange spices from 100 different worlds. As the station's human medic, Jake had seen it all. But after 6 months on Nexus Station, one thing still bothered him more than anything else: the way everyone treated the Cathara. The Cathara were humanoid aliens with pale blue skin and large violet eyes. They looked fragile, almost delicate, but they did all the hardest work on the station. They cleaned the waste systems, fixed broken machinery in dangerous areas, and worked in the toxic lower levels where other species refused to go. And when they got hurt, which happened often, almost no one cared. Jake walked into the main medical bay where his boss, Chief Medical Officer Vex Korlath, was examining a wealthy Aldorian trader. The Zenteran doctor had 4 arms and skin that changed colors based on his mood. Right now his skin showed pleasant blue swirls as he spoke kindly to his patient. "Dr. Martinez," Vex Korlath said without looking up, "please prepare the advanced healing chamber for our distinguished guest here. He requires the finest treatment available." Jake nodded and began setting up the expensive equipment. The healing chamber could cure almost any injury or illness in minutes. It cost more credits than most Cathara workers made in a year. As Jake worked, 2 Cathara maintenance workers carried their injured friend past the medical bay. The injured Cathara had burns on his arms and was clearly in pain. Jake started to move toward them, but Vex Korlath grabbed his arm with one of his 4 hands. "Where are you going, Dr. Martinez?" "That Cathara worker needs medical attention," Jake said. Vex Korlath's skin shifted to annoyed orange patterns. "The Cathara have their own basic medical station in the lower levels. We do not waste our time or resources on them here." But his burns looked serious. "The basic station down there doesn't have proper equipment for—" "Dr. Martinez," Vex Korlath interrupted, his skin now showing angry red streaks. "I will not repeat myself. The Cathara are not our concern. Their biology is too primitive for advanced treatment anyway. Now please focus on our important patients." Jake watched helplessly as the injured Cathara was carried away. This happened almost every day. The Cathara got hurt, and everyone ignored them. Even the other human doctors and nurses seemed to accept this as normal. Later that day, Jake was organizing medical supplies when Nurse Amy Foster approached him. Amy was young and had only been on the station for 2 months. She still looked shocked by many things she saw. "Jake, I don't understand something," she said quietly. "Why don't we treat the Cathara workers? They're people too, aren't they?" Jake looked around to make sure no one was listening. The station operates on an old caste system. The Cathara are considered the lowest class. Most species see them as barely above animals. "But that's wrong," Amy whispered. "I know," Jake replied. "But if we speak up too much, they'll send us back to Earth. Then we can't help anyone." Amy frowned but said nothing more. Jake understood her frustration. He felt the same way every day. The next morning brought an emergency that would change everything. Jake was checking medical inventory when alarms started blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red, and the station's communication system crackled to life. "Medical emergency in waste processing level 7. Medical emergency in waste processing level 7. Jake grabbed his emergency kit and ran toward the lifts. Waste processing level 7 was deep in the lower sections where only Cathara worked. The air there was thick with chemicals and barely safe to breathe. When Jake arrived, he found a crowd of Cathara workers standing around a small figure on the metal floor. It was a young Cathara girl, maybe 16 years old by human standards. Her pale blue skin looked gray and her violet eyes were closed. She was barely breathing. "What happened?" Jake asked as he knelt beside her. An older Cathara worker answered in broken common language. "Lyra worked too long. No food for 2 days. Chemical air make her sick. She just fall down." Jake quickly examined the girl. She was severely malnourished and showed signs of chemical poisoning. Her pulse was weak and her breathing was shallow. Without immediate treatment, she would die. We need to get her to the medical bay right now, Jake said. The Kythera workers looked at each other with fear in their eyes. The older worker shook his head. Medical bay not for Kythera. They sent her away. Not if I'm with her, Jake said firmly. He carefully lifted the unconscious girl. She weighed almost nothing. Jake carried Lyra through the station corridors toward the medical bay. Other species stared at him with confusion and disgust. A draconian security officer even stepped forward as if to stop him, but Jake pushed past. In the medical bay, Vex Korlath was treating a minor headache for a Veloxian merchant. When he saw Jake carrying the Kythera girl, his skin immediately turned angry red. Dr. Martinez, what is the meaning of this? This girl is dying, Jake said, placing Lyra on an examination table. She needs immediate treatment. Vex Korlath approached and looked at the girl with disgust. His forearms waved dismissively. Remove this creature immediately. This is a medical facility for civilized species, not a charity for worthless laborers. She's a person, not a creature, Jake said, connecting monitoring equipment to Lyra. And she's dying. I said remove her, Vex Korlath demanded. That is an order. Jake looked at the unconscious girl, then at his superior. Other medical staff had gathered around, watching the confrontation. Amy stood near the back, her face pale with shock. No, Jake said quietly. Vex Korlath's skin turned the darkest red Jake had ever seen. What did you say? I said no. I won't let her die because of some stupid caste system. I became a doctor to save lives, not to pick and choose who deserves to live. The medical bay fell silent except for the beeping of Lyra's monitors. Everyone stared at Jake, waiting to see what would happen next. He had just defied the chief medical officer in front of everyone. On Nexus Station, that kind of insubordination could mean immediate expulsion. But Jake didn't care about the consequences. He looked down at the dying girl and made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He began preparing the treatment she needed to survive, knowing that he had just declared war on the entire system. Jake worked quickly to save Lyra's life while Vex Korlath stood behind him, his forearms crossed and his skin showing angry red patterns. The other medical staff watched in silence as Jake connected tubes and wires to the unconscious Kythera. Girl, you are making a terrible mistake, Dr. Martinez, Vex Korlath said in a cold voice. I will report this to the station commander immediately. Jake ignored him and focused on his patient. Lyra's breathing was getting weaker. He injected medicine to help her lungs work better and started giving her fluids through a tube in her arm. Slowly, her vital signs began to improve. Security to medical bay, Vex Korlath spoke into his communication device. We have a situation requiring immediate attention. Within minutes, 2 draconian security guards entered the medical bay. Their scales were dark green and they carried shock weapons on their belts. The larger guard, Captain Scarvex, had a long scar across his snout that made him look even more frightening. What seems to be the problem, Chief Medical Officer? Captain Scarvex asked. Dr. Martinez is treating a Kythera against direct orders, Vex Korlath explained. Please remove the creature and escort the doctor to detention. Jake stepped between the guards and Lyra. If you move her now, she'll die. I need at least 2 more hours to stabilize her condition. Captain Scarvex looked at the girl on the table, then at Jake. Human, you are interfering with station protocol. Step aside. No. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone in the medical bay held their breath. No one defied draconian security guards and walked away unharmed. Captain Scarvex moved his hand to his shock weapon. I will not ask again. Before anyone could react, Amy stepped forward. Wait, she said, her voice shaking but determined. According to Galactic Medical Code Section 12, no patient can be moved during active life-saving treatment. Moving her now would be illegal. The security captain hesitated. He knew the medical codes as well as anyone. If the girl died because he moved her, he could face serious charges from the Galactic Health Council. You have 1 hour, he finally said to Jake. Then she goes back to the lower levels where she belongs. After the guards left, Jake continued working on Lyra. Amy helped him by monitoring her vital signs and preparing medicines. The other medical staff gradually returned to their duties, but Jake could feel their nervous glances. "Why are you helping me?" Jake asked Amy quietly. "Because it's the right thing to do," she replied. "My oath as a nurse says I help all patients, not just the ones society thinks are important." An hour later, Lyra's condition had improved enough that she was no longer in immediate danger, but she was still very weak and needed several more days of treatment to fully recover. Jake knew the security guards would return soon to take her away. "We need to move her," Jake told Amy. "My quarters are small, but I can set up basic medical equipment there." "That's against every regulation on the station," Amy warned. "So was letting her die," Jake replied. They carefully moved Lyra to Jake's personal quarters using a maintenance corridor to avoid being seen. Jake's room was tiny, but it had everything they needed. He set up monitors and connected an IV line to keep giving her medicine and fluids. When Lyra finally woke up 12 hours later, she looked around with confusion and fear. Her large violet eyes fixed on Jake, and she tried to sit up quickly. "Easy," Jake said gently. "You're safe. You collapsed at work. But you're going to be okay." "Where am I?" Lyra asked in heavily accented common language. Her voice was weak and hoarse. "You're in my quarters. I'm Jake Martinez, a doctor. I've been taking care of you." Lyra's eyes grew wide with shock. "You are human, doctor. Why you help Kythera? This is not allowed." "Everyone deserves medical care," Jake said simply. "Can you tell me your name?" "I am Lyra," she said quietly. "But you must send me away. If others find out you help me, you get in big trouble. Let me worry about that. Right now, I need to know more about your condition. How long since you ate a proper meal?" Lyra looked down at her hands. 3 days, maybe 4. I save credits to buy medicine for my little brother. He is very sick, but medicine costs too much." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. This girl was starving herself to help her sick brother, while wealthy aliens spent fortunes on cosmetic treatments in the medical bay. "What kind of medicine does your brother need?" Jake asked. "Medicine for lung sickness. Kythera get lung sickness from chemical air in lower levels. Many die from it." "Lung sickness?" Jake frowned. "You mean respiratory infections? Those are easy to treat with the right antibiotics." Lyra shook her head sadly. "Antibiotics cost 500 credits. I make only 20 credits per day. Need to work many months to buy medicine." Jake calculated quickly in his head. 500 credits was what the medical bay charged wealthy patients for a simple headache treatment. The actual cost of the antibiotics was less than 5 credits. "Lyra, I want to ask you something important. Do any of your people know how to treat illnesses? Before you came to this station, did Kythera have their own doctors?" Lyra's expression changed. She looked afraid, as if Jake had asked her to reveal a dangerous secret. "I should not talk about this," she whispered. "You can trust me," Jake said, gently. "I'm risking my career to help you. I won't betray any secrets." Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Then she began to speak in a voice so soft that Jake had to lean close to hear her. "Long time ago, Kythera were great healers. We knew how to cure many sickness without machines or expensive medicine. But other species say our ways are primitive. They forbid us to practice healing arts. Now only few old ones remember the ancient knowledge." "Some of your people still know these healing methods?" Jake asked with growing excitement. "My grandmother know many things. She teach me little bit before she die. But if anyone find out we use old healing ways, we get sent to prison worlds." Jake sat back, stunned by what he was hearing. The Kythera had their own medical knowledge, possibly advanced techniques that could help their people, but they were forbidden from using this knowledge because other species considered it primitive. "Lyra, would you be willing to show me what your grandmother taught you?" She looked terrified at the suggestion. "Is too dangerous. If they catch us, if we don't try, more of your people will die," Jake said. "Your brother might die. How many others are suffering right now because they can't afford basic medicine?" Lyra closed her eyes and was silent for several minutes. When she opened them again, Jake saw a new determination there. "My grandmother always say that healing knowledge should be shared to help others," she said slowly. "Maybe she would want me to trust you." "I promise I'll do everything I can to protect you and your people," Jake said. "Then I will show you," Lyra decided. "But first we must be very careful. There are others on this station who still remember the old ways. If we can find them, maybe we can help many sick Kithara." Jake nodded, realizing that his simple act of treating one sick girl was about to become something much bigger. He was about to discover medical knowledge that had been hidden for generations, and possibly change the lives of every Kithara on the station. But first, they had to survive long enough to put their plan into action. 3 days passed while Lyra recovered in Jake's quarters. During this time, Jake learned that the situation for the Kithara was even worse than he had imagined. Lyra told him stories about her people that made his heart ache with anger. "My people used to live on a beautiful world called Kith Prime," Lyra explained as Jake checked her vital signs. "We had great cities and schools for healing arts, but then other species came and said we were too dangerous because our healing knowledge was so advanced." "What happened to your world?" Jake asked. "They destroyed our cities and took our people as workers. Said we could only live if we forgot our old ways and served other species. Many Kithara died fighting to protect our knowledge. Others hid the ancient teachings in secret places." Jake felt sick thinking about an entire civilization being destroyed just to keep other species in power. "How many of your people remember the old healing ways?" "Not many," Lyra said sadly. "Maybe 20 or 30 on this station. They meet in secret places and practice healing when they can, but always very careful. If caught, punishment is death or prison worlds." That afternoon, Amy came to visit Jake's quarters with medical supplies she had smuggled from the main medical bay. She had been covering for Jake, telling other staff that he was sick with a human illness that might be contagious. "How much longer? Can we keep this up?" Amy whispered as she helped Jake change Lyra's IV bag. "Not much longer," Jake admitted. "Vex Korlath is getting suspicious. He asked why I haven't reported to duty today." "And there's something else," Amy said nervously. "I overheard Captain Scarvex talking to another security guard. They're planning to search all human quarters tomorrow. They think someone is hiding contraband." Jake and Lyra looked at each other with worry. If security found her in his quarters, they would both be in serious trouble. "I know a safe place," Lyra said quietly. "But you might not like it." "Where?" Jake asked. "The hidden healing place where my people meet is in old maintenance tunnels deep below station. Very secret, very safe." Jake considered this carefully. Going to a secret Kithara meeting place would put him in even more danger, but it might be their only choice. "Can you contact these healers?" he asked. "Yes, but they will be very scared of human doctor. They think all other species want to hurt us." "We have to try," Jake decided. "Amy, can you create a distraction tomorrow during the security search?" Amy nodded. "I'll find a way. But Jake, are you sure about this? If they catch you with the Kithara healers, it won't just be expulsion. They might charge you with sedition against the Galactic Order." "I became a doctor to help people," Jake said firmly. "All people, not just the ones society says are important." The next evening, Lyra led Jake through a maze of maintenance tunnels deep beneath Nexus Station. The air was thick and hot, and strange pipes and cables lined the walls. They walked for almost an hour, going deeper and deeper into sections of the station that Jake had never seen. Finally, they reached a heavy metal door hidden behind a tangle of old wiring. Lyra knocked 3 times, paused, then knocked twice, more. After a moment, the door opened slowly. An elderly Kithara woman peered out. Her violet eyes were cloudy with age, but her expression was sharp and intelligent. She looked at Jake with deep suspicion. "Why do you bring outsider to sacred place?" she demanded of Lyra in the Kythera language. "Elder Kira, this is the human doctor who saved my life," Lyra replied in common language so Jake could understand. "He wants to help our people." Elder Kira studied Jake for a long moment. "Humans have never helped Kithara before. Why should we trust this one? Because he risked everything to save me when no one else would." Lyra said, "and because he wants to learn our healing ways to help more of our people." Elder Kira stepped aside and gestured for them to enter. Jake found himself in a large, hidden chamber that had been carved out of the station's superstructure. Soft lights illuminated walls covered with drawings and symbols that looked like medical diagrams. About 15 Cathera of different ages sat in a circle, all staring at Jake with fear and curiosity. In the center of the chamber was something that took Jake's breath away. It was a complete medical facility, but unlike anything he had ever seen. Instead of machines and computers, there were plants growing under special lights, containers filled with natural medicines, and tools made from organic materials that seemed to pulse with their own energy. "This is our true healing center," Elder Kira explained. "Here we practice the ancient arts that other species tried to destroy. We grow medicines that can cure illnesses your advanced technology cannot touch." Jake walked around the chamber in amazement. He saw treatments for diseases he recognized, but the methods were completely different from anything taught in human medical schools. Plants that could regenerate damaged organs, crystals that could detect illness before symptoms appeared, techniques for healing that used the patient's own life energy. "This is incredible," Jake breathed. "Some of these methods could revolutionize medicine throughout the galaxy. That is why they fear us," said a younger Cathera healer named Nex. "If other species learned that we possess superior healing knowledge, they could no longer justify treating us as inferior beings." Elder Kira nodded sadly. "For 300 years we have hidden our gifts while watching our people suffer and die from illnesses we could easily cure. But the punishment for revealing our knowledge is too severe." "What if we could change that?" Jake asked. "What if we could prove that your methods work and force the galaxy to accept them?" The Cathera healers looked at each other with expressions of hope and fear. "Impossible," Elder Kira said. "Who would believe Cathera knowledge is valuable? We are seen as primitive servants." "But they might believe a human doctor," Jake said. "If I could learn your methods and document how well they work, I could present the evidence to the Galactic Health Council." "Too dangerous," Nex protested. "If you are caught with our knowledge, they will destroy this place and execute all of us. And if we do nothing, more of your people will die," Jake replied. "How many Cathera children are sick right now because they can't afford basic medicine? How many adults are suffering from illnesses you could cure in days?" Elder Kira was quiet, for a long time, thinking carefully. Finally, she spoke. "There is wisdom in what the human says. Perhaps it is time to take a great risk for a great reward." She turned to face Jake directly. "If we teach you our ways, will you swear to use this knowledge only to help others, never for personal gain?" "I swear it," Jake said solemnly. "And will you protect our people even if it costs you everything?" Jake thought about Amy's warnings, about the dangers he would face, about the career he might lose. Then he looked at Lyra and the other Cathera healers who had suffered in secret for so long. "I will protect you," he promised. "Whatever it takes." Elder Kira smiled for the first time since Jake had met her. "Then we will teach you the true healing arts. But first we must save your friend's brother and show you what Cathera medicine can really do." Jake spent the next week learning from Elder Kira and the other Kithra healers. What he discovered changed everything he thought he knew about medicine. The Kythra methods were not primitive at all. They were incredibly advanced, just different from the technology-based medicine used by other species. Elder Kira showed him how to use special plants that could cure lung infections in hours instead of weeks. She taught him about crystals that could detect diseases before any symptoms appeared. Most amazing of all, she showed him how Cathera healers could use their own life energy to help patients heal faster. "Your people have healing abilities that are almost magical," Jake told Elder Kira as she demonstrated a technique for healing broken bones. "Not magic," she corrected. "Science. But science that other species do not understand, so they call it primitive." Jake practiced the techniques every day, and Elder Kira was surprised at how quickly he learned. "You have natural gift for healing. Energy," she told him. "Very rare in non-Kithra species." Meanwhile, the situation on the station was getting more dangerous. Amy reported that Vex Korlath was asking more questions about Jake's absence. Security guards were searching more areas of the station. Captain Scarvex had increased patrols in the lower levels. "We need to do something soon," Jake told Elder Kira, "before they discover this place." "Yes," she agreed. "But first, we must save Lyra's brother. His illness is getting worse and regular. Medicine cannot help him now." Lyra's brother Ven was only 12 years old. He worked in the worst part of the chemical processing levels, because children could fit into small spaces that adults could not reach. The toxic air had damaged his lungs so badly that he could barely breathe. Jake examined Ven in the hidden healing chamber and was shocked by what he found. The boy's lungs were filled with chemical burns and scar tissue. Using normal human medicine, Ven would die within days. But Elder Kira believed the ancient Cathara healing methods could save him. "This will take all of us working together," Elder Kira explained. "We must combine your human medical knowledge with our healing energy techniques." The treatment took 3 days. Jake used his medical equipment to monitor Ven's condition, while the Cathara healers used their life energy to help his damaged lungs regenerate. It was the most incredible thing Jake had ever seen. Slowly, the scar tissue dissolved and healthy lung tissue grew to replace it. On the 3rd day, Ven opened his eyes and took a deep breath without coughing. It was the first time he had breathed normally in months. "It worked," Jake said in amazement. "The combination of our methods actually worked." But their celebration was short-lived. Amy burst into the hidden chamber with panic in her eyes. "Jake, you need to come back to the surface right now," she said breathlessly. "Vex Korlath has figured out that you're not sick. He's filed charges against you with the station commander, and Captain Scarvex is organizing a massive search of the lower levels." Jake's heart sank. "How long do we have?" "Maybe an hour before they find this place," Amy said. "There are security teams searching every maintenance tunnel." Elder Kira stood up with determination in her old eyes. "Then it is time to stop hiding." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "For 300 years we have hidden our gifts while our people suffered. But you have shown us that cooperation between species can create miracles. Perhaps it is time to show the galaxy what Kithra healing can truly accomplish." "They'll arrest all of us," Nex warned. "Maybe," Elder Kira said, "but they cannot arrest the truth. And the truth is that our healing methods work better than their expensive machines." Jake understood what she was suggesting. "You want to reveal everything publicly. Show the entire station what you can do. Yes, we will heal the sick where everyone can see. We will prove that Cathara knowledge is valuable, and we will force them to choose between their prejudice and the lives of their own people." The plan was dangerous, but it was their only chance. Jake and the Cathara healers gathered their medical supplies and left the hidden chamber. Instead of trying to escape, they went directly to the main levels of the station. They set up their healing center in the station's central plaza, where hundreds of beings from different species walked by every day. Elder Kira began treating sick Cathara workers while Jake documented everything with his medical scanner. Within minutes, a crowd had gathered. Aliens from dozens of species watched in amazement as the Cathara healers cured illnesses that the station's main medical bay had declared untreatable. A Veloxian merchant with a skin condition that had bothered him for years was healed in 10 minutes. An Eldorian child with a rare blood disease was cured with a combination of Cathara plants and Jake's medical equipment. Even some wealthy aliens who could afford the best treatment began asking for help. But then security arrived. Captain Scarvex appeared with a dozen armed guards, his dark green scales showing patterns of rage. "By order of Station Command, you are all under arrest for unauthorized medical practice and violation of species hierarchy protocols." The crowd of aliens who had been watching the healings began to murmur angrily. They had seen miracles performed right in front of them, and now security was trying to stop it. "Wait," called out a voice from the crowd. It was Dr. Ben Taylor, a human researcher who worked in the station's science division. "I've been recording everything with my equipment. These healing methods are genuine medical breakthroughs." "This is not your concern, Dr. Taylor," Captain Scarvex growled. "It's everyone's concern," Ben replied loudly. "These Kithra healers just cured diseases that our best doctors said were impossible to treat. Are you really going to arrest them for saving lives? More voices joined in from the crowd. An Eldorian scientist whose daughter had been healed stepped forward. My child was dying, and they saved her life in minutes. How is that a crime? The Veloxian merchant held up his hands, showing his perfectly healthy skin. I spent thousands of credits trying to cure this condition. These healers fixed it for free. Captain Scarvex looked uncertain. He had expected to arrest a few rebels, not face an angry crowd of grateful patients. But his orders were clear. Stand aside. He commanded the crowd. These beings are under arrest. That was when Vex Korlath arrived with more security guards. The Zentaran chief medical officer pushed through the crowd, his 4 arms waving and his skin showing the darkest red patterns of fury. Seize them all, he ordered. This illegal medical practice ends now. But as the security guards moved forward, something unexpected happened. Amy stepped out of the crowd, followed by Dr. Ben Taylor and several other human staff members. Then came the Eldorian scientist, the Veloxian merchant, and dozens of other aliens who had witnessed the healings. They formed a protective circle around Jake and the Cathara healers. If you want to arrest them, Amy said clearly, you'll have to arrest all of us. Jake looked around at the faces surrounding him. Humans, Eldorians, Veloxians, and even a few members of other species had chosen to stand with them. For the first time since coming to Nexus Station, he felt hope. But he also knew that the real fight was just beginning. The standoff in the central plaza lasted for hours. Captain Scarvex and his security guards faced a growing crowd of aliens who refused to let them arrest the healers. More people kept arriving as word spread throughout the station about the miraculous treatments they had witnessed. Station Commander Drac Voss, a massive draconian with golden scales, finally arrived to see what was causing the disturbance. He pushed through the crowd and saw Jake standing with Elder Kira and the other Cathara healers, protected by dozens of grateful patients. What is the meaning of this chaos? Commander Drac Voss demanded. Vex Korlath stepped forward, his skin showing bright red anger patterns. Commander, these criminals have been practicing illegal medicine and violating species hierarchy laws. I demand their immediate arrest. Illegal medicine? Asked Dr. Ben Taylor, holding up his recording device. Commander, I have documented evidence that these healers cured 17 different patients in the last 3 hours. Diseases that our main medical bay said were incurable. Impossible, Vex Korlath protested. Cathara medicine is primitive nonsense. Then explain this, said the Eldorian scientist, pushing his young daughter forward. My child was dying from blood poisoning. Your medical bay said nothing could be done. But these healers saved her life in 20 minutes. Commander Drac Voss looked at the small Eldorian child who was clearly healthy and full of energy. His golden scales shifted slightly, showing confusion. And look at my hands, added the Veloxian merchant, displaying his perfectly smooth skin. I spent 5,000 credits at your medical bay for this skin condition. They gave me expensive treatments that didn't work. These Cathara healers cured me for free. More testimonies came from the crowd. A Zentaran worker whose broken bones had been healed without surgery. An elderly human whose arthritis pain had disappeared completely. A young draconian whose infected wound had closed without leaving a scar. Commander Drac Voss was a practical leader who cared more about order and efficiency than ancient prejudices. As he listened to the testimonies, he began to see the situation differently. Dr. Martinez, he said, addressing Jake directly. You are the human doctor involved in this. Explain what has happened here. Jake stepped forward, knowing that his next words could determine the fate of everyone involved. Commander, I discovered that the Cathara possess advanced medical knowledge that has been suppressed for centuries. When I combined their healing techniques with human medical science, we achieved results that neither could accomplish alone. You are suggesting that Cathara medicine is superior to our current methods? The commander asked. Not superior, Jake replied carefully. Different. But when used together with modern techniques, the results are remarkable. The evidence is right here in front of you. Elder Kira spoke up in her clear, strong voice. Commander Drac Voss, My people have hidden our gifts for 300 years while watching others suffer from diseases we could easily cure. We ask only for the chance to help all beings who need healing regardless of their species. The commander looked around at the crowd, then at the Kythera healers, then at Vex Korlath. Chief Medical Officer, you have seen this evidence. What is your professional opinion? Vex Korlath's skin turned darker red. Commander, regardless of any results, these actions violate clear station protocols. The species hierarchy exists for good reasons. If we allow lower-tier species to practice medicine, it could upset the entire social order. The social order that lets children die from treatable diseases? Amy asked boldly from the crowd. Commander Drakvos raised his large hand for silence. I am more concerned with practical results than social theories. If these healing methods work, then we need to investigate them properly. He turned to Dr. Ben Taylor. You said you have documented evidence? Yes, Commander. Complete medical scans before and after treatment, plus video recordings of the entire process. I've also taken samples of the natural medicines they used. This data could revolutionize medical science throughout the galaxy. The commander considered this for a long moment. Jake held his breath, knowing that this decision would affect not just them, but all Kythera people everywhere. Here is my ruling, Commander Drakvos announced in a voice that carried across the plaza. All medical activities will cease immediately while we conduct a proper investigation. Dr. Martinez and the Kythera healers will be held under house arrest pending review by the Galactic Health Council. Vex Korlath looked pleased, but the commander continued. However, I am also ordering an immediate medical emergency protocol. Any being on this station who requires urgent treatment may request care from any available healer, regardless of species or social status. The Kythera healing methods will be tested under controlled conditions. The crowd erupted in cheers. It wasn't complete freedom, but it was progress. 3 weeks later, representatives from the Galactic Health Council arrived at Nexus Station. They conducted extensive tests of the Kythera healing methods, with Jake serving as a bridge between the two medical traditions. The results amazed even the most skeptical council members. Kythera healing techniques proved effective against dozens of diseases that conventional medicine struggled to treat. The combination of traditional Kythera knowledge with modern medical science created treatment possibilities that neither could achieve alone. Dr. Lisa Morgan, the chief investigator from the Health Council, announced her findings in the same central plaza where the confrontation had taken place. After careful investigation, we have determined that Kythera medical knowledge represents a major breakthrough in healing science. The Galactic Health Council officially recognizes these techniques as legitimate medical practice. She paused as the crowd cheered, then continued. Furthermore, we are establishing new protocols requiring all medical facilities to offer integrated treatment options that combine traditional healing methods with modern technology. Jake watched from the crowd as Elder Kira was presented with an official certificate recognizing her as a master healer. Lyra stood beside her, wearing the uniform of a certified medical assistant. Her brother Ven, completely cured and healthy, smiled proudly at his sister. 6 months later, Jake and Lyra worked together in the new integrated medical center on Nexus Station. Healers from many different species shared knowledge and techniques, creating treatments that no single tradition could have developed alone. The medical center treated all patients equally, regardless of their species or social status. Wealthy merchants received the same quality care as Kythera workers. Children from all backgrounds played together in the healing gardens, where medicinal plants grew under carefully controlled conditions. Do you ever regret risking everything to help me? Lyra asked Jake as they finished treating their last patient of the day. Jake looked around the busy medical center, where beings from dozens of species worked together to heal the sick and injured. He thought about all the lives they had saved, all the prejudices they had overcome, and all the hope they had created. Never, he said with a smile. Sometimes one person helping another person can change the entire galaxy. Lyra nodded, understanding the deeper truth in his words. What had started as a simple act of compassion had grown into a revolution that was spreading to medical facilities throughout known space. The artificial barriers between species were crumbling, replaced by cooperation and mutual respect. As they walked home together through the busy corridors of Nexus Station, Jake realized that this was just the beginning. The universe was full of beings who needed help, and now they had proven that working together could accomplish miracles. The future had never looked brighter.